Hello there! This is our Godot 4 tutorial, part 15. Last time we worked on implementing the game settings and covered the topic about the visual stuff. In this video, I would start with the audio things, including the mixer, channels, and volume sliders. And if there is still time, I'll add something about the custom splash screen and icon. Let's dive into it. Godot's audio system offers great flexibility, allowing us to create multiple channels known as buses, which serve as pathways for sound output. Through code, we have the ability to control these buses. We can adjust their volume settings, add sound effects, or even disable them to mute the respective channel entirely. In our case, we will configure two buses, one for music and another for sound effects. We will then bind them to their corresponding sliders in the settings menu, providing players with the ability to adjust the volume levels as desired. So let's start with switching to the audio tab down here, and we opened the master bus, which is a default settings. Now, as we said, we would like to add two more buses. So let's click here to add bus twice, and let's give them proper names. So this one would be music and this one SFX for sound effects. Okay, let's open the scene sound manager, and we will route all game sounds through the SFX bus, which means let's select them all, and here in Inspector we can simply change the bus to SFX. Done. Now let's take a look at the script for the sound manager. It is here, and we'll add this code. First, let's define the variables for all buses. Let's deselect this. Okay, var master bus, var music bus, and var SFX bus. Okay, and we'll initialize them in the ready function, which we finally need in this script as well. Func ready master bus is audio server get bus index, and the name is master, and let's do the same for two other buses. What did we bus, no bucks, bus, sorry. Now it's correct. Let's copy it twice and rename to music bus and SFX bus, and use the right name, music and SFX. Okay, and we need new functions to adjust the volume. Func set master volume value, and audio server set bus volume dB. Okay, and the audio bus uses a decibel scale, which is logarithmic. So we need to calculate it from linear values before applying. Luckily, Godot provides a function called linear2dB, which is precisely what we'll use here. Let me show you. So first parameter is bus index, it's master bus, and now the function I was talking about, linear2dB and value. Okay. Otherwise, it would be too complicated to set it through the slider, because players usually expect a linear scale there. Okay, one more, and the third one, and this would be music, music, and SFX, and of course we need to change this music bus and SFX bus. All right. Now we can open the settings scene and we will add 3 more labels with slider options. Okay, I think we can start here with copying and pasting the which is comma slider. So let's duplicate that and rename to master volume label and master volume slider. We need to disable the signal here because we'll connect it to another method after we are finished. And let's set minimum value 16, this is correct, maximum value should be 1, and step, okay, 0.1, which is right, and the default value, maximum volume, which is 1. Okay, and we need to change the label here, master volume, and let's see how it looks. Looks fine, and of course we have to do the same for 2 other buses, so let's Ctrl D and Ctrl D once more and do some more renaming. Music volume slider, I mean label, of course, and here music volume slider, and SFX volume label, SFX volume slider. And of course the texts are not correct, we need to put music here and SFX here. Okay, and now we'll assign the signals to newly generated methods, functions. So let's start with the master volume slider, switch to node and value changed, double click and connect. This is the first one. Then the music slider, double click, connect, and finally the sound effects, double click and connect. Here it is. Let's switch to the script, and first we'll add references to these new controls, drag and release, click with control, of course, with control key. Okay, setting up default values here in the ready function. So let's make it simple. This would be music volumes, music master. Let's start with the global one. Is I think we can set just master volume to the options if exists, otherwise 1. Okay, and again copy and paste twice and do the other stuff. Music, SFX, and here music volume, copy, paste, SFX volume, copy, paste. Okay, this is the init part, and now the change part. So on master volume slider value changed, we will do this. Options master volume is value, and write it. Options manager, write settings, options I mean, with parameter options. And of course now we need to call the function at sound manager we just created. which was set master volume. There it is, with value. Okay, now let's do the same for the other sliders. I suppose there might be a more, I would say, common method to do it, not 3 times, but just once, but let's keep it simple for now. It can be always optimized later. The point is to understand how the audio stuff works in Godot. And SFX and set SFX. Cool. Okay, let's save. So let's start the game and check the new sliders there. Okay, let's go to the settings page, and now we know that all sounds are routed through this bus, so let's decrease the volume significantly and try to start the game. Yeah, definitely much quieter than before. Okay, it seems that the explosions are still louder than we would like to, but it's probably caused by the sound itself. Let me just exit the game, and if we want to, we can switch to the sound manager scene and go through the sounds and see if some of them can be just adjusted here by the volume dB slider for the particular sound. One more thing, currently we do not implement any positional audio. We simply play the sound files as they were originally recorded. However, if you choose to position the sound effects in the 3D space, you can utilize the type audio stream player 3D instead of audio stream player. Let me just show you how to find it. Audio stream player, here it is. And this kind of node, we would have to make it a child node of a specific node that is associated with the sound. For example, if we want to make the sound follow some kind of movable object like the flying ship, this is exactly what we would do, and then it would require some more coding to do the proper assigning and the assigning and this kind of stuff. We might get to that later. Before we switch to another topic, I just decided to improve the exploding thing a little bit. So I added a new sound, which I downloaded from freesound.org. It's called Destruction, because it looked to me like the enemy, the boss destruction shouldn't be just, should be a lot more spectacular than just destruction of a standard enemy ship. So I added this new sound to the sound manager scene, and in the main script I added also a much bigger fire to display as an explosion. And in the function create explosion, we check for the group boss, and if boss is detected, we will play the destroy sound. Let me show you. This is standard. Let's grab the power up. Nice, isn't it? Okay. We could also add a music that would play, for instance, at the menu screen, but we will do that in one of the next videos where we introduce the intro scene with some animation to be displayed before we get to the menu screen. Okay, one more thing I would like to talk about in this video is how we can define a splash screen. I suppose everybody knows what a splash screen is, just a simple picture that is displayed while the game is being loaded. And Godot has support for this. Upon launching the game, Godot's default splash screen is displayed by default. Yeah, this is the Godot symbol. Yeah, this one. But of course, it can be replaced by anything else. Let's do it. First, we need to create the image. You can either draw it yourself if you are a graphic artist, or, for example, I tried to use an AI generator like Midjourney or Stable Diffusion for that. In fact, my favorite one is Stable Diffusion, as it can run locally on my computer. So I just gave it this simple prompt: space shooter ship with jet flames, firing phasers, and shiny metal plates on the hull in a dark space, Octane render Unreal Engine. And after several tries and errors, I received this kind of picture, which is pretty nice, I would say, for space shooter. So let me show you how you can use it as a splash screen in your game. So this time we will copy it just to the root, because it's not necessary to create a new folder for only one picture, at least not at this moment. Alright, it should be there. Yeah, here it is, splash. Now we'll go to project, project settings, general, application, and boot splash, and the image can be used here. We located it here and use it. So what happens if we start the game now? Yeah, first it barely blinked and was gone, and second, it was too big. It just filled the whole window. We don't want that. Let's do some minor adjustments. So first, we just deselect the option of full size, which means that the image will keep the original size. That's what we want. And it is also possible to configure the minimum duration for which the splash screen remains visible before the entry scene takes control of the game. However, it's important to exercise caution and avoid setting it too long, as players might become easily irritated or frustrated with extended wait times. Let's, for example, set it to 2 seconds. It's milliseconds. Okay, 2000 here. And start the game now. 1, 2, yeah, and the gamma is here. Okay, why not? You can play with that if you want to and do some more changes, but I think that we got the idea. Okay, the third and the final topic of this video would be key bindings. It's actually very simple to change keys or set new key bindings in the project during the development phase. We just go through to the project settings, click input map, and then do everything here. But once the game is released, the players wouldn't have this option, so we need to do it in some other way. Let's explore how we can tackle this issue. So we'll start with creating a new scene, create new scene, and extend 3D scene, and let's call it key binding. Okay. Now we will just copy the camera 3D, directional light 3D, and the world environment from the settings scene. Yeah, these three, Control C and Control V. Okay, there it is. And we'll bind a new script to the root node that is called keybinding GD. Create, save. Now we will, as usual, add the canvas layer and grid container. So let's do it. Add child node, canvas layer, and grid container. There it is. Let's call it controls container. Okay, and this time we'll set the number of columns to 3, because we will have the label, the primary key, and the secondary key. So we will create a table header with first 3 child nodes of the grid container. But before we do that, switch to 2D and we'll change the anchors preset. We want to have it centered. Here it is. Let's zoom out. Okay, now the first label would be just an empty label. It would be in the corner, and the second and third one will show primary key and secondary key. Let's do it. label is here. We can leave the name label because it's just label, or let's call it empty label, and 2 copies. One, let's work with the first one. So primary key label, and we will give it the text primary key, and again we want the fonts are here. Let's drag it there, and let's set the font size 20, just like we did with the settings. It might not be big enough, but we'll adjust that later. Okay, and let's duplicate this label to create a secondary, and let's delete the 2 and change the text. Secondary. Let's add the first key mapping. So we will add label as a child node again, and rename it to move up label. This will be the first key, move up label, and we will give it a text here, move up, and change the font. Yes, I know we should set the theme with this font, and we wouldn't be forced to do it over and over, but I didn't export this part yet, so in this tutorial I'll just do it this old-fashioned way, and I hope it's not a big problem. Alright, this is the label, and now we need 2 buttons, because we need to something which would be clickable and could receive events like keystrokes and mouse clicks to remap our key mappings. Okay, so we will add a new child node, this time button, and let's call it move up primary button, and we'll set the toggle mode to on, so we'll make a toggle button out of that. And now we'll bind a new script not to the root node but to the button. Let's click the icon while the button is selected, and let's call it control button. I'll press Ctrl S to save the script, and now we want to open the button in inspector or connect the signal toggled. Let's double click that, but just don't press connect right now. We need to change the node, because otherwise the function would be generated in the main key binding script. Let's scroll down and choose the button, and now let's click connect. And as you can see, the callback function was created in key binding. Let's Ctrl S to save it, and we'll repeat this process to create the secondary button. Let's just switch back to the 2D view. So Ctrl D to duplicate, and let's just rename it to move up secondary button. Secondary, and yeah, it should be bound to the same script. It is, and the signal is connected there as well. Good. So we stay in the script control button, and let's create 2 export functions, because export variables, because we will need to set the action and the primary flag for every button. So export var action and export var primary. Okay, Godot doesn't like that we don't have a default value, so let's just do it. The default value would be move up, and here let's make it true as the primary button. Alright, now Ctrl S to save and switch back to inspector. It is already here, so let's select the primary button, and this is correct. Move up and primary is on, but for the secondary button, primary should not be on. let's get back to the script, and we need to add something to the ready function, because once the page is displayed, we would like to show all currently assigned keys for every action. So we'll create a new function called display current key. I think process can be deleted. Func display current key. And let's do this. Var action events is input map. This is actually the input map we'll be setting in project settings. Just a programmatical access action get events. It is an array because every action can have multiple keys assigned. So we need in this case to select the first, either the first one or the second one. Var current key is nothing as a default value, and if primary and there is something defined, so action events size would be greater than 1, greater than 0. Let's set the current key that is defined there. So it's action events index 0 and as text. So we translate the event to a simple letter or a number or mouse click or something like that. And let's do it a similar way for the secondary button. So elif not primary, so we are currently working with the secondary button, and in this case we need at least 2 records in this array. So if it's greater than 1, then the current key would be this index 1 as text. And finally, let's assign it to the text property, so it would be displayed on top of the button. Text is current key. Good. Now we want to implement the scene workflow. So let's go back to the settings scene, and we will copy this back container back button. So Control C and back to key binding. It would be outside the canvas layer or just outside, yeah, outside the option container. Okay, so we'll do it as a child node of canvas layer. Control V to paste it, and of course we need to reassign the pressed signal. It's not even assigned yet, so let's double click, make sure it is going to the key binding script, and click connect. And in this method we will just do the usual thing to change the scene, get tree, change scene to file, and it would be res / scenes settings. Okay, so this is for going back, and let's verify, yeah, it is here. And now we want to go to settings and add a new button, key bindings, somewhere here, so you'll be able to switch to that scene. I will simply duplicate this back button with back container. So let's do it, and we will call it, I would say, key bindings, or just key to make it shorter, key container and key button. Okay, I'll move it, I'll leave it as it is, and it is currently overlapping the back container. So first we will change the label, key bindings, and now we will change the layout. We selected what did we selected? Margin container, I suppose. So if we go to theme overrides, it's possible to set a bigger margin, so let's do for margin button 20 and not enough, 100. Yeah, that should be okay for now. All right, and of course the button should be the signal should be linked to a new function. So let's right click and disconnect, and again double click pressed and connect, and we have a new button, a new function here. We will just type get tree, change scene to file, and the new scene would be res scenes key binding. Okay, that should be correct now. By the way, I changed the hierarchy, the order of these containers, because it seems that the key container is overlapping the back container. So it's necessary to do it in the right way, otherwise the back button wouldn't be accessible. Now it is. So let's try it, execute our game, and let's go to settings. New button is here. When we click it, there is just prepare the table for remapping the first key we use in the game. Let's go back, exit. And if you wonder why nothing showed up in the table, but it should have been at least the W key, which we assigned with the action move up. It's entirely my fault because I forgot to call this function display current key from ready. So it was never called display current key. And now if we try it again, I think I should get rid of this splash screen. It's a little bit annoying. So bindings, and here it is, W physical. I think we'll just change it later. So now I will spend some time adding other key mappings. I think I'll skip this part and just show you the result. Okay, let me show you the result. Let's start a game, go to settings, key bindings, and you can see all control keys here. It is definitely not finished. We should also add pause, resume keys and something more, but I think that this could be enough to understand the process. And it seems like we didn't define any secondary keys, so we can either do that and the profile settings input map, or let's just leave it for now, and we will then do it automatically with default keys once we define them. The second thing is that the layout is too compressed. It seems that there could be some spaces between the cells, so let's do at least this. It should be pretty easy. We'll open the grid container, which is here, controls container, and find in control theme overrides constants, age separation, which we will set to 10 horizontal, and let's do it for the vertical separation as well. If we check the 2D editor, yeah, it looks definitely better. Let's try it in the game. Yes, I think this looks better than before. Now we need to implement the actual key mapping changes. For that, we will create a new autoload script, key manager. And since this script contains several methods which are quite long, or at least longer than usual, I decided to do it just before I started recording, so we save a lot of time. It's not necessary to watch me type everything, I suppose. Let me open that, and here we define the default key map. It contains primary and secondary keys of all actions we have there. So after we implement the special button called restore default values, this map would be used to do it. The key map is stored just like we store the standard settings in the user area, and we will keep it in a dictionary. So on the start, the script will just load it from the stored key map and assign everything as necessary. And here we have functions like save key map, which will be called from the key bindings script to apply all changes we do on that page. And of course, reset key map is necessary to implement for the default key restoration. Okay, so this is included in autoload and assigned in project settings as usual. And now we can open the script control button. Here it is. And add a new function, remap action 2. Okay, and of course we have to make sure that we recognize what mapping should be changed, if primary or secondary. So let's do it here. Func remap action to event, and first we take the action events as we did here, so I'll just copy it to make it faster. And input map. Before we remap, we need to delete everything what was there before, otherwise we would just add new mapping to existing ones and the array would grow up and up. Action erase events there for the action, and now let's detect the array of events. So we'll define var events is empty array for now, and if we're working with the primary key, let's just append the event, append the event, and if action events size was greater than 1, which means we already had the secondary key defined, we don't want to lose it, so we will automatically append the previously used secondary key here, which is here. So that's for primary, and now else. For secondary, we just reappend the primary key that we just saved, events append action events 0, the first index, and the new secondary key, which is event. Okay, and now for E in events, let's add them to the input map. Action add event, action E. Okay, and to store the changes, we will call the key manager. Key manager. Why we cannot find it? Did I forgot to add it to the action map? Let's see. I'm in autoload. Yeah, definitely I forgot. Sorry. So let me do it now. Key manager, add. Now it should be correct. If I type key manager, yeah, the auto complete works now. Key maps action is the array events, and we need to save it. Key manager, save key map, and finally we will assign the new value to the text of this button. Text is event as text. Now we need to override the function input to capture the keystrokes and mouse clicks actually. So we'll start with creating a new variable called remap mode, just to know if we are currently remapping or not. And let's find function on toggled, which we will fill first. So the remap mode would be set here, and it's basically equal to the event we receive. So if button is pressed, we are in the remap mode. And now if is button pressed, let's temporarily delete the text that was there because we are in the process of remapping. So let's just display 3 dots. and release focus, else display current key. Okay, if we untoggle it, we want to display what was just remapped. And now the function input event. If we are in the remap mode, let's do this. Now we need to do somehow confusing logic, but the point of that is that sometimes we want to map a left mouse click, but we also use left mouse click to initiate this remapping mode, to toggle the button. So there will be a couple of lines that might not be understandable at the first glance, but I would like to add this is just a result of my experiments and seems to be working. So if event is input event key, which means we pressed a key on the keyboard, or event is input event mouse button, we click the mouse. So we don't want to, for example, capture mouse move events if we just hover the mouse cursor over this button. Let's call a remap action to this event, and if event is input event key, or it's not the left mouse click, so not event button index equals mouse button left. Let's toggle button pressed to false, because if we don't do that, the left mouse click would just toggle it back to button pressed, and we would never get out of this infinite loop. So this is just a working workaround. Okay, let's try it out. We'll start the game, go to the settings page and the key bindings, and now we will try to remap the accelerate primary key to middle mouse button. So we click it first, there are these three dots, and click the mouse wheel, and yes, it is there. Let's go back and let's try it in the game. I'll start and move, and with shift nothing happens, but with the mouse button it's moving accelerated. It seems to be working perfect. And the very last thing for today, let's implement this restore default values button. It is basically a fail-safe mechanism in case of unexpected situations, such as a completely messed up key mapping. So let's implement this solution. We already have the corresponding code here in the key manager script, so let's just tie it all together. We'll switch back to 2D, and we need to create a new margin container and a button. This time a child node. I will do it here, margin container. Let's rename it to restore default container. Restore default container, and we'll give it a child node, a button that we rename to restore default button. Okay, let's give it the text restore default keys, and quickly let's change the font to our usual font here, and what was that, 40? Yeah, I suppose so. And we need to set the proper layout. So we'll simply click back to the container, open the layout section, and change the anchors preset to center bottom. And of course we need to go to theme overrides and give it a bigger margin, 20, of course not, 100. Yeah, that should be it. And just like before, let's change the order to make sure that the back button is rendered after restore button and it is not covered by the container. And finally, we need to assign the callback for the signal pressed here. And to this method, we will simply call the reset key map function of the key manager. Key manager reset key map. And of course, if we do that, the buttons would still display the previous values. We need to refresh the UI. And I think the simplest way is just to do it in a cycle for item in utils get all children of the type. Now I think that I will just drag the container node here. Yeah, this is the fastest way to refer to it. And in this cycle, if item is key binding button, which is the class we forgot to assign to that class, so let me fix that. It should be control button, and here we'll make it as class name, this one, key binding button. Let's get back, and now it should work. Item display current key. Okay, what is wrong here? Yeah, I suppose it was not saved, so the class name was not known. Let's just refresh. Yeah, okay, let's check it out. Alright, if we press that, it is back to shift. Perfect. That's the desired behavior. By the way, we didn't incorporate any mechanisms to identify duplicate key mappings, which can easily happen. So please ensure that you provide a warning message in your game if the same key is assigned to multiple actions, or simply don't allow something like that. Okay, thank you for watching. This should be everything for today. And in the next video, we will finally implement the intro scene and add some music. See you next time.